In Pit Lane, proudly brought to you by Dyno Dynamics, the leader in premium performance. And with our great thanks to the following supporting companies. Hello everybody and welcome to this special edition of the In Pit Lane videocast. Just last week we went down to Phillip Island for the Australian GT Championship, and while we were down there we caught up with the new series boss Tony Quinn. Tony Quinn's a great supporter of local motorsport and of course a competitor in a number of series, including the Australian GT Championship. We asked him about a whole range of subjects, including the Bathurst 12 Hour, the future of this particular category, but we started out by asking him why he got involved with the Australian GT Championship. Well, Tony, you're the man who liked GT racing so much you bought the company. Why did you buy into Australian GT Championship?
That's right. I do like the series. I think the series is fantastic because in Australia we've got Formula Ford that's all the same, Formula 3, the Utes, the V8 supercars, the Konicas, Porsche Carrera Cup. They're all the same, and I think the public and competitors like to drive different cars, and I know that I do. And you see that at the big rounds where people come and want to look at the Mercedes or Aston Martin or whatever. So it's a good series, and I think it's got a good future. I don't think there's any money in it. There's no money in it, but at least it's something to do. When I retire from making pet food and walking a dog, I'll do this.
So where do you see the category going over the next few years?
Oh, look, one of the critical things I did when I bought it was to hand it over to Spherics, Craig and Bill, and they're the best managers in the country. And I had a few discussions with them and decided to go with them, and really and truly I leave it to them to run, and I think they've got some good ideas for next year. They've got a 3-year plan that will be announced at Bathurst that seems quite exciting to me. I don't know if it's financially possible or whatever, but if we get the support from competitors and the race support, the promoters, I think it'll be a good thing.
One of the controversies over the past few years has been the whole idea of parity and also the inclusion of so-called professional drivers or Class 1 drivers. Where do you see that going? I mean, do you think there's room for bringing in more recognisable drivers, young drivers perhaps coming straight out of Formula Ford, or people even coming back from V8 supercars?
Look, I think you can't go restricting your series to an elite group. I think you've got to open it up and let people compete. And they choose the weapon, and they've got their ability, and I don't think we should put those kind of restrictions on it. That would be my view. I mean, I compete in the real world against Master Foods and Nestle, the big boys, and I do quite well. And I come here and race and I do quite well. I think people have just got to, they won't be able to buy themselves to the front. They'll just have to rely on luck and bloody tenacity to get to the front. And given the right conditions on the right day, the cards fall your way. There are things that we're going to do that will help mix the field up, and I think that's not going to be with lead weights and restrictors and bloody all that stuff. It'll be timed pit stops. So, like every race, I believe from next year on, we'll have a pit stop, and you'll have to stop, and you'll have to stop for a certain time. And if you're a gun driver that's 5 seconds a lap quicker, you'll be stopped for a while, I would suggest.
As for the regulations for next year, I mean, GT3 has taken off all around the world. It's probably been one of the success stories of motorsport recently. Stefan Rattel is talking about having a World GT Championship, a one-off race featuring the champions of each of the national series. He runs most of those national series. You obviously run this one. Have you spoken with Stefan Rattel at all about any sort of tie-in between them and you?
No, I don't even know the guy. But I applaud his work, and if ever the opportunity arises, then if it can be done, we'll be there. Whatever the deal is, we'll put our best foot forward, I'm sure.
We've got the Bathurst 12 Hour coming up early part of 2012. The first meeting earlier this year really was quite a success. A lot of international interest now. I mean, is this going to be a really big boost for GT3 in Australia?
Look, I honestly don't think so. I think last year we competed. We finished third behind the factory teams of Audi. And I just think that, to be honest, the guy that runs it, James O'Brien, is not the right guy to be running that gig. It was a Schmozel last year, and I think this year it'll be an equally big Schmozel. I mean, we might compete, I don't know. The trouble is that a week later, our season starts with Clipsal, so I doubt very much whether any of these guys will want to run their cars. I think they'll try and buy a drive, we might race a Mitsubishi or Suzuki or something, but I don't think we'll be racing a GT3 car. And to be fair, the Europeans will come, and like last year, they'll be given some freedoms that we weren't allowed. We were told absolutely one-seated driver, and the Europeans arrived with 3, and then the other car had Craig Lowndes and Warren Luff. Fucking bullshit, if you ask me. But not sour grapes. It's just that it's a week. It's a bit. The timing's not good. That for us, it's not that good. And I think this series here, we're doing 1 hours. 1 hour races. Maybe next year we'll have a 3 hour or a couple of 3 hours or something, just to mix it up. We're all about listening to the competitors and what they want, what the majority of them want, and trying to deliver that. This weekend's going to be really good because we're going to try the time pit stop penalties, all that stuff. Be quite interesting.
With these meetings, these standalone meetings, you've got the one here, you've got the one up at Eastern Creek. Would you like to see more of them where you've got a lot more flexibility to run the races the way you want to run them?
No, I think it's a bit stupid. We've got a couple of support categories. It's a bit silly, to be honest. We need to, we've got the V8s in Australia that are the main game in town. They're the circus that everybody wants to go. We should try and do a couple of rounds with them, although it's time restrictive with those guys. We don't get to do what we want to do. But we might go with the Shannons or something else, or do something else. If the V8s don't go to Tasmania, we'll be there in a heartbeat. Like if the V8s choose to pull out of Tasmania, and the Tasmanians miss out on that, we'll be there in a heartbeat with whatever circus we can provide. So I think we'll just be another option. Not that we want to go with the V8s, but we won't get to do what we want to do. And the V8s might not. I think they want us at some of the rounds, but not. We don't want to be. Carrera Cup can fill that role, and Konicas and Formula Ford and those guys. They've got enough guys there.
With the GT3 cars coming out here, some talk about you upgrading your Aston Martin to the brand new Vantage, which just comes out, which looks an extraordinarily wonderful car. Also, some talk about you hunting down a McLaren as well. What sort of cars can we see? Do we have new cars on the way for next year?
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of Audis. There's definitely a Ferrari. There's talk of a BMW. There won't be a McLaren. There won't be an Aston Martin because I don't think they're ready. There might be a Nissan. There'll be anything that raced or is homologated in Europe right now or this year can race next year. The problem is that getting cars in Australia, new cars for next year, is difficult because we kind of have to take the rejects from Europe. Not the rejects, but the ones that are for sale, because to order a new car is quite a big mission. But look, I still do have an deposit for a new Aston Martin, but they just can't get their shit together. They're just not ready. I don't know when they'll be ready. Typical Aston Martin, mate. Good car, and I love driving it, but try and get something out of them. It's hard.
I'm glad you said it because I was going to jump in and say the same thing. Tony, best of luck with the championship. I know that there's a lot of interest from our viewers on In Pit Lane and in this sort of racing. Great to see all these wonderful cars out there, plenty of variety, and we look forward to hearing more about your plans for 2012 a little bit later on. But for now, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Thank you. Stay tuned.
I'm Alan Evans, Managing Director of Dyno Dynamics.
Best thing about my job is the variety.
Best thing about my job is the excitement of it all.
Customer service is important to the company because we want to maintain the really good reputation that we have.
Customer service is important because mechanics gossip and you make one person happy and the word spreads.
Dyno Dynamics in one word, innovative.